I found one of the most overpowered, broken, brain-dead strategies that Korean players are abusing to stomp the ranked ladder. All of this started when I was analyzing games from the Korean pro player Chovy, when all of a sudden I noticed whenever Chovy picked Tristana mid lane, he put up absolutely insane stats. I mean, just check out these KDAs in 6 of his last 7 Tristana games. 4 of them have perfect KDAs, and the other 2, he has nearly 20 kills or more. That's not all though, as check out his CS numbers. In practically every game, he's exceeding 10 CS per minute. In one of them, he actually hit 12.5 CS per minute. It still gets even crazier, as 4 of these 6 wins were actually done in only 15 minutes. So I did a bit more digging, and what I found is that there are multiple high-ranked Korean challenger players that are abusing this Tristana mid strategy for free LP. I even discovered a secret Korean Smurf account that had an 80% win rate with Tristana mid in Diamond 2. So in this guide, I'm going to walk you through step by step everything you need to know about this strategy and how you can execute it yourself. That's not all though, as just because Korean challenger players are winning games with it doesn't mean it will automatically work for a regular player in lower ranks. That's why I was also then sent into the depraved depths of Low Elo North American solo queue to test this strategy to see if they work for us regular mortals playing with bad teammates. On top of this, I wasn't allowed to just spam games and cherry pick the ones where the strategy worked. I was forced to play 10 games in a row and show the results, good or bad. This way, you the viewer can be sure what you're about to learn is not only consistently effective, but also easy to execute without having to spend hundreds of games to master. Now, I'll be revealing the win rate I got over these 10 games at the end of this video, but as a minor spoiler, here's the post-game lobby of one of the games I played in high gold to low platinum. Yeah, you're seeing that right. I had nearly 10k more damage than my entire team combined, and had around a 10k gold lead on the enemy mid laner. Needless to say, the strategy you're about to learn is insane, so let's get into it. Alright, so to understand why this strategy is so powerful, you only need to understand 3 core concepts. The first is Tristana's trading power. Tristana has an insanely powerful early game due to the fact that she is a ranged attack damage champion with a point and click burst ability, her explosive charge. I mean, just take a look at how Chovy can use his E and auto attack only twice and literally take a third of Ahri's health at level 1. At level 1, you'll be able to land 3 auto attacks before the charge explodes, which will do 279 damage against an opponent with 30 armor. At level 2, if you skill into your Q, you'll have enough attack speed to land the max 4 auto attacks, which does 361 damage against an opponent with 30 armor. This gives you insane lane control early, as your main trading combo in lane is to just cast E and then auto attack. And don't worry, your E range actually scales with your auto attack range, so you'll always be able to land this combo together. The real power though is how it forces the enemy to be zoned away from the wave in order to avoid more auto attacks that would increase the charge damage. And this is actually Tristana's main combo in lane. All you have to do is cast E and auto attack the opponent. If they try to stand and trade, they get demolished by your increasing E damage and auto attacks, so most players just back off immediately, and the problem is they still take tremendous harass damage while being zoned off the wave. It doesn't stop here though, as Tristana has a very unique interaction with her W, Rocket Jump. You see, it has a cast time of 0.25 seconds. This means if you cast it right before you get hit with crowd control, it will actually still go off. This is incredibly broken in lane. For example, here you can see Chovy go for his simple E into auto attack combo, and Ahri responds by casting a charm. Normally, this would then cause a losing trade for any other champion, but as long as we cast our W right before it lands, we negate the crowd control completely, land our W damage in slow, and then can continue applying damage with our auto attacks to get a fully charged E. This one mechanic alone completely negates any counterplay for opponents and makes you insanely oppressive in lane. You can see how Chovy uses it to set up a tower dive here, landing his E in auto attacks, then timing his W right before the charm hits so he can jump out of tower range. Keep in mind, that trick is great against opponents that are playing absolutely perfect. However, often you can just time your W aggression off an enemy putting a key spell on cooldown. For example, Chovy is playing against a Nico mid, and as soon as Nico casts our Q and puts it on cooldown, he now knows he's safe to use W to force a trade during this timing window, since Nico will be missing a ton of their damage. All of this makes Tristana's neutral in lane extremely powerful. But as mentioned, there are 3 concepts, and the trading aspect is only the first. The second concept is her pushing power. You see, Tristana's E has a passive where her basic attacks are empowered to trigger an explosion when they kill the target, dealing magic damage to nearby enemies. This passive effectively lets you outpush every single champion in the early game just by last hitting. There are a few tricks to using this though. When the first wave arrives, you typically want to focus a melee minion with a few auto attacks. This will then let you last hit it early enough to get that passive damage on the other melees, helping you outpush the enemy. Then after this, you can focus your attacks on a caster minion with the same concept. This then allows you to kill it earlier, triggering the AoE damage from your E passive. You can see how Chovy is able to get a massive push lead just in the first wave. Over the course of the laning phase, you effectively have permanent lane priority in mid lane and will just pin the opponent down to their tower. If we skip ahead a few minutes, you can see how Chovy can just auto attack the wave to get a massive push lead. Then, when his E is off cooldown, he'll look for the E auto attack combo to take winning trades if the opponent doesn't let themselves be zoned. In the meantime, just by autoing the wave, he can maintain a massive push lead, giving him the ability to react to anything on the map first. Next wave arrives, same idea, we look to land our E auto attack combo. Enemy of course tries to defend with crowd control, so we use our W buffer trick to counter and take a winning trade. Again, don't even have to use any spells on the wave, just by auto attacking, we have the push lead. Chovy then looks to crash the wave and look to tower dive, but their jungler hovers, so only gets Ahri's flash. Next wave arrives, we have the push lead, again, just by autoing. We threaten a kill if the enemy gets within our E auto attack range, and we can always counter the charm with our jump. So the enemy is forced to stand at the safety of their tower, being pinned down completely off the map. They then try to recall off the siege minion wave, but just check out how fast Tristana's clear speed is. Chovy uses nothing but his Q here, clears the wave, matches the recall, and gets back to lane in time before Ahri can even push the next wave into his tower. So at this point, we're back to the neutral state, and you know the game plan. Look for our E auto attack combo. Enemy tries to defend against it with crowd control, so we use the W buffer trick and take a winning trade. With our wave clear, we can then quickly crash the wave and set up the easy tower dive with an E auto attack ult, and making sure to time the W with the enemy's crowd control to then get out of tower range. Keep in mind, Chovy is doing this against Korean challenger players. Just imagine players in your rank games trying to deal with this. The thing to take note of though is that not only does Tristana have insane pushing power with her E passive, but it's that most mid laners, if they want to push, have to put their main ability on cooldown. For example, if Ahri wants to push, she would have to cast her Q ability on the wave, meaning she doesn't have that for any trades. With Tristana, you get to hold all your trading abilities while just getting to outpush your opponent with nothing but auto attacks. This is what makes her so broken. Now, remember, we said there are 3 concepts you need to understand, and the last one is Tristana's tower damage. This tower damage comes from 2 things. The first is from minions. So here's Chovy playing Tristana, and you can see how since we have such strong pushing power, it creates wave crashes that consistently chip away at the tower's health. If we skip ahead a little bit, you'll see the same scenario. Big wave crashing on the tower, helping get a turret played and applying more damage. Once again, we skip ahead and you'll see a push into recalling, and again, those minions cause damage to the tower. A minute later, same dynamic. By having such strong pushing power, it makes stacking up tower damage really easy with minions. At this point, Tristana has barely even auto-attacked the tower, and it's basically at half health. The second part of the tower damage, though, will come from Tristana's kit. If at any point you kill the opponent, or they try to roam or don't defend, you will absolutely shred down towers with your abilities. And yes, you did just see Chovy tower dive an Ahri from full health by himself right after this, and then get out and push another wave to set up a recall timing, which then caused even more tower damage from the minions. So he then teleports back on that same wave he just pushed to finish off the tower. To put into perspective just how insane that is, Chovy, without the help of a Rift Herald or any other teammate's damage, just solo killed mid-tower by the 11 minute and 30 second mark. I promise you, no other mid lane champion besides Tristana can do this sort of thing. And of course, taking a tower and all those plates is insane for snowballing. I mean, in total, taking 5 turret plates in first tower is over 1500 gold. That's the equivalent of 5 kills. But the real value is how much map control it will give you from that point forward. Notice how after we push this next wave, that it results in the opponent now being pinned down so much further back the lane at their second tier tower. This makes it impossible for them to react to any play on the map before you. At the same time though, it means that they have to take longer to push a wave back all the way to your tower, giving you a longer roam timing window. You can see this immediately come into effect as Chovy pushes the next wave and then looks to roam on bot lane. By the time Tristana is in position on bot lane, Ahri has only just finished clearing the wave in mid. And if you're in this Ahri's position, it is recommended to do what she does. Try to punish the roam by taking the tower and turret plates. I mean, Ahri even has a Rift Herald to place, and yet because of how much longer of a roam timing we have due to Ahri's mid tower being down, we can actually get back in time to defend after just one wave. So it's these 3 ingredients, Tristana's trading, pushing power, and tower damage, that makes her one of the hardest snowballing champions in the game during the laning phase. Laning is only one part of the game though, and building a big lead early on means nothing if you don't have a game plan for the mid to late game. And that's actually exactly why we created a premium course on mid lane macro for you guys on our website, skillcap.com. Let me quickly show you how it works. In the course, we'll teach you everything you need to know on how to set up a roam, when to roam, how to counter the enemy roaming, which by the way is a huge mistake players make. We cover lane priority, the best warding locations, and simplify the mid to late game by teaching you the concept of lane zones, how to use them, and ideal lane assignments. It's essentially everything you'd ever need to know to start macroing like a pro. The real crazy part is not only do you get access to this course, but also the literal largest catalog of League of Legends courses in the entire world for as low as $6.99 a month. And it gets even better as we are so sure that our service will help you improve. that we actually offer a rank up guarantee. If you don't significantly improve while actively using skill capped, you'll get your money back, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below to improve fast and get the rank you've always wanted. Alright, and so as I was saying, Tristana's macro game plan in the mid to late game is god tier. You see, most mid lane champions that are mages can feel a bit, well, useless once the laning phase comes to an end. Tell me if this doesn't sound a bit too familiar. You're playing someone like a Nivea, you beat your opponent in lane, then it gets past 14 minutes and tower plating is gone, and suddenly you have your bot lane sitting in mid with you splitting farm. Naturally, this then forces you to swap with them in bot lane, but every time you push, your lack of mobility means you just get collapsed on and killed. Or you end up side laning against like a super fed top laner that takes no damage and can just run you down. Or your team doesn't play safe, the enemy just forces a fight 5v4 and you try to punish by pushing to the next tower, but your auto attacks hit like a wet noodle and you're barely able to get the tower to half health. Here's the thing, Tristana is the antithesis of everything I just said. She absolutely dominates in the side lane. You can see here, that swap with bot lane we talked about happens to Chovy. So he just moseys onto bot lane to assassinate their AD carry. He continues pushing, and oh, what's that? The enemy is trying to force a fight on my bad teammates. No worries, I can just destroy towers from full health in literally 10 seconds. Think that's just one lucky game? Oh, what's this? Chovy literally taking mid tower again with Tristana before the 12-minute mark in the very next game. And of course, the literal exact same roam timing, pushing a wave to pin the opponent to their second tier tower and roaming on bot lane. Of course, the enemy mid tries to punish by pushing, but they don't have a Rift Herald this time. And so we can get back to lane to defend before they even land any tower damage. And of course, as usual, we're then forced into a side lane later on by our bot laners rotating to mid. This time, we end up in top lane. No one shows up in time, and that means an easy tower for us. Still, you may not believe me. Well, let's hop into the very next game again. Chovy's Tristana once again taking the tower, this time before the 11-minute mark. Once we're back in lane, you know the game plan now, push into roaming with our bigger timing window. This time, that roam goes top lane. And oh, what's this, a full health tower with all turret plates? Well, no worries, Tristana and a Rift Herald deal with that in less than 20 seconds. Oh no, we're now forced into that side lane scenario against the dreaded top laner. Yeah, that stuff does not matter for Tristana because she's so strong at 1v1s, unlike traditional mages that excel in teamfights. And of course, with no one left to defend the tower, we just destroy it in like 15 seconds. Skip ahead a minute, and what do you know? The mid laner is the one forced to defend a side lane against a top laner. That terrible scenario you're probably familiar with. No worries, our 1v1 is so strong that even this challenger Renekton knows that there's no point in fighting back. And of course, some of you are thinking, yeah, but it's not like you can just AFK split push into every single matchup in every single game. And you're right, that's why with how fast Tristana pushes, we can always fall back on a push into roam strategy. You can see how by pushing, we force an enemy to defend and pick up the wave. Remember, if they don't defend, we're threatening to just take towers at insane speeds. In this case, once Renekton respawns, he'll have to deal with defending the tower. So, while the enemy is pinned down by the wave, we can use that timing window to roam to a fight to get there first. This means the enemy is effectively a man down, massively increasing your odds of the fight going in your favor. Now, of course, just because Chovy uses this in Korean Challenger does not mean it's going to automatically work for players in lower ranks with bad teammates. So that's why I was sent into Low Elo solo queue to test this myself. On top of this, I wasn't allowed to just spam games and cherry pick the ones where the strategy worked. I was forced to play 10 games in a row and show the results, good or bad. So let's jump straight into my first game, trying this in Gold Elo. Laning phase starts and our game plan is to auto the wave to get the push advantage. I then fished for the E auto attack combo we went over, but the enemy is playing way too far back, so I just continued to zone them while I last hit and push. Now, at this point, I spot the enemy jungler, Shaco, looking to level 2 gank my lane with red buff. Well, I'm not going to fall for that, of course. I reposition to hug the opposite side of the lane and then look to focus down a melee minion for level 2 so I can skill into my W and escape. Sounds like a great plan, but this minion completely baits me and I just end up dying looking like a complete idiot. So yeah, we're off to a great start. Literally died level 1. I return back to lane, looking to execute the laning strategy we went over, getting the push advantage and seeing if I can land a E auto attack combo for harass. However, this Ezreal is playing incredibly safe, and so I don't force anything and just look to play off my map control. I see my jungler being collapsed on, and with my push advantage, I'm able to react to the fight while Ezreal is pinned down by the wave. And just like that, we pick up our first kill. Awesome. Well, would be awesome, but then I immediately jump into Xerath, not only getting myself killed, but also baiting my entire team to their deaths. Now, before someone starts commenting at how they knew this strategy wouldn't work in Low Elo, trust me, it's going to be a whole lot better. The reason I'm showing you these mistakes is so you can learn from them without having to make them yourself. Well, that, and I want you guys to see a realistic approach to what climbing will be like with this strategy instead of just a compilation of my best plays. So I respawn and I'm back to lane, and of course, we're back to pushing. One thing I quickly started to realize was that when an enemy is playing super passive like this, it leaves you open to just focus the tower with your E and Q on pushes. This not only damages the tower, but a lot of players don't realize the satchel explodes in such a giant AoE around the tower, resulting in them taking a lot of damage as well. Next wave arrives, and of course, against an enemy playing this safe, we're just going to continue pinning them down to take map control. And again, just like a few minutes earlier, I'm reacting to a play my jungler is making bot side. But this was actually a mistake in retrospect. If I had just taken a few extra seconds to also check my top lane, I'd realize Teemo is easily diveable if I had roamed there instead. This meant I kind of just wasted my time hovering the play bot side and then headed back to lane. Now, finally, once I got back to lane, Ezreal stopped playing so passive, and so I immediately looked to engage with my W. And well, yeah, that was an incredibly easy solo kill. I, of course, then pushed the wave to get some tower damage and a turret plate, into then shoving the next wave to set up a recall timing and get more damage on the tower from the minions. Back to lane, and with Ezreal missing, I hard push in case he's roaming. In this case, he actually recalled, but you can see how because Tristana has such fast clear speed, I'm able to deny a few minions to the tower while getting more damage on it, and a second turret plate. During this, I then spot Teemo roaming towards my lane in a ward. However, with my jungler nearby, and with the lead I have, I figure I can just bait him into a losing 2v2. The problem is, once Ezreal engaged, I thought I could easily burst him down, but I overestimated how fast I could 100 to 0 him. I also canceled an auto attack at one point. So again, I end up just kind of looking like an idiot, dying to a gank I saw a mile away. Once I respawn, I teleport back to lane, and with Ezreal low from the previous fight, I look to take advantage of this by shoving a wave and going for tower damage. And I'm actually able to take 2 whole plates just off this one wave, which again, shows how insane Tristana is. And you guessed it, this once again lured enemies to gank my lane, this time the bot lane. So I hug the opposite side and try to play safe. I then hold my W, trying to time it when Xerath casts his E, but just fail miserably, and honestly probably would have died here if Jhin landed his W root. I then proceed to just wave clear and eventually set up a recall timing so I can get my first completed item spike. Again, Ezreal tries to match my recall, but my pushing speed is so fast I'm able to get some additional damage on the tower before he can get back to lane. Next wave, push him, pin him down, and I spot a low health Teemo on the map for me to kill. I recall after since I'm low on health, and once I get back to lane, my main goal is just to push and finally take this tower. And like we taught you in the Chovy replays, with this tower down, we now have a much longer roam timing. So we push the wave, and in this case, I spot a good tower dive bot side. I'm able to not only pick up a kill on Jhin, but then the tower after, and even get back to mid without losing a single minion. That's insanely efficient. I'm back to pushing mid, and remember, if no one is defending your pushes, you have to punish by taking the tower. I can see Ezreal is bot, and so I figured there's a good chance I can get this tower for free, but Jhin does show up to defend in time. So, same strategy, with that wave pushed and pinning someone, I look to roam bot again. In this case, the Ezreal ends up tower diving and trades 1 for 1, and so I just start farming the wave. You can see how with my bot laner now going mid, we've exited the laning phase and we're in our mid to late game macro phase. The plan is simple, we're gonna push, forcing an enemy to respond. If they don't, like in this case, well, we just take the free tower. Or if someone weak responds that we can 1v1, then we kill them, like this Xerath. I then look to recall after this to spend my gold and convert it into an item lead. And it's here I make 2 big macro mistakes back to back. So as I leave base, I start heading to mid lane. This is correct as if we look at our side lanes, they're both pushed. When side lanes are pushed out like this, you want to go mid first. This way if a fight breaks out, you'll be in position to respond. At the same time, if nothing happens, you then just run to the side lane from mid lane. The problem is, as I show up mid, I do my new patented Tristana combo of jumping in blindly on an enemy and immediately getting killed for doing so. This not only gives them a shutdown, but keeps me off the map, slowing down my snowball. So when I respawn, I end up back in the side lane bot, and in pushing as I should be. Here's the second mistake though. As I push this wave in, there's 2 enemies defending. This is absolutely fantastic, as it means I can now pivot into the push roam strategy. I simply need to rotate off and head towards mid, as any fight there will have the enemy team down 2 members since they're pinned bot lane. Instead, I kind of just do nothing. I'm missing my roam timing and taking a bunch of free damage from Xerath. If this wasn't bad enough, while I was over here running in circles, the enemy Shaco I had lured to the bot side just ran off and actually got to the nearby fight way before me. This meant by the time I realized my mistake and tried to react, the fight was already lost. Game's not over though, and we still have a slight lead. My next macro sequence has me picking up a wave pushing topside. A great thing about Tristana is how you're almost like an assassin with your damage, and so it's nearly impossible for squishy champions like AD carries to match you. I make sure to push to the enemy's tower to bait someone to defend, or take the tower if they don't. And it's at this moment I don't want to make the same mistake I just made where I missed my roam timer. So I spot 2 squishy enemies really overextended mid lane, and decide I want to roam off my push. However, we're able to catch Shaco by himself in the jungle, and with her top then teleporting in and dropping Herald, we can just continue pushing to try and take inhibitor. And yeah, with Tristana's tower damage, that happens quite easily, even able to get a quick kill as we back out. Once I recall and leave the base, an identical scenario happens again, where an enemy is overextended pushing a side lane, so we react to it, looking to get a kill. We then want to push, either to take the tower or pull someone to defend. Once I spot this Ezreal ult going by, I know he's going to be defending bot, so I begin an early rotation to look for either a number advantage fight mid or just take the low mid tower. However, once I see Ezreal moving up to farm the wave, I realize I have a very easy pick. Again, people don't realize Tristana is almost like a Zed the way she can jump on squishy targets and burst them. And with Ezreal now dead, we have a number advantage, so I call to force Baron. The enemy is now in a losing position. They either have to try and defend it 4v5, in which case we'll just turn on them, or they give it up for free. In this case, they try to defend it, so we pick up 2 kills into then turning back on Baron. At this point, the game is nearly unlosable. We just have to take the 4th dragon for a Dragon Soul. And what do you know? Once again, a squishy champion in the side lane, that's easy pickings. And with Ezreal trying to defend Super Minion's top and Jhin dead, well, it's an easy dragon, and with how strong I am, at this point, I just play like a crazy person, looking to inflate my KDA until the enemy team surrenders. Overall, not too bad for the first game trying this strategy. Sure, I did make a few mistakes, but that's expected for the first game. I actually ended it 15, 6, and 6 with 250 CS at 27 minutes. Now, don't worry, as much as I like the sound of my own voice, I won't be going over every single other game in full. Instead, I want to highlight the most important lesson from each of these games. In the second game I played, I realized how effective using a recall timing before a siege minion wave can be for Tristana. Since we have such fast push early on, at any point in time prior to a siege minion wave, you can just shove it into recalling. And because it's so early, the enemy won't have the pushing power to crash the siege minion wave into your tower before you get back. This means you can show back up with an item advantage. And since the wave is still pushing back, it allows you to force an engage on the opponent. In this case, I use the trick of timing my engage off the enemy's cooldowns. With my item advantage and the enemy running out of sustain and mana, it means I'll win the war of attrition, and so Orianna forces an all-in to bait a jungle gank to bail her out. But Tristana's mobility is so insane with W that it just really doesn't matter. In the third game I played, you'll notice how it's around 30 minutes, and with Baron up, I'm not able to move into a side lane to split push. This is because if I do, the enemy can just force Baron 5v4, and this is such a classic low elo ARAM scenario. In these positions, if your teammates die, you always have the backup plan of just shoving down mid when the enemy then goes for Baron. You can see how not only am I going to be able to take 2 inhibitors off this, but the enemy team then doesn't know what to do, and so actually pulls off Baron to try and defend. So always be on the lookout for plays like these where you can just run it down mid when the enemy tries to go for Baron or Dragon. In game 4, I want to show you guys a hidden perk to being able to outpush your opponent. You'll see here, I initiate a trade with my W, timing it off the enemy throwing out crowd control as we taught you. And although I win the trade, I still took a lot of damage. Well, all you have to do is push the next wave and then rotate off to pick up the nearby honey fruit. These honey fruit plants first spawn between 6 minutes and 6 minutes and 30 seconds every game, and they will always spawn in one of these locations on both sides of the river. So once it's past 6 minutes, be aware that you may not need to recall off your push if you have one of the honey fruit plants alive to take. For game 5, I want to teach you an absolutely disgusting tactic with Tristana. So at the start of the game between 1:15 to 1:22, place a ward here at the enemy raptors. Then you just execute your early landing strategy as normal. You'll eventually spot the enemy jungler at the raptors. When you do, move your camera to see if they're low on health, as a lot of junglers don't have healthy clears. Since our strategy is always to push early, we can easily jump over the wall here at level 3 and kill the enemy jungler for first blood, getting a massive early lead. In game 6, I again want to highlight how insanely overpowered the honey fruit timing is. It's around 5 minutes, and I initiate an aggressive trade to try and bait the enemy laner since my jungler wants to gank. In the end, I unfortunately end up in lower health than Jace. However, if we check the time, it's almost 6 minutes when honey fruit starts spawning. So I know as long as I stay safe, I can clear a wave into a roam timing to get the honey fruit. You can see how this completely catches the enemy Jace off guard, as the last time he saw me I was super low on health, and actually sets me up for a solo kill. For game 7, I want to highlight a very common scenario you're going to find yourself in. I respawn and need to head bot lane to pick up the wave that was pushed to our tower. Now, during this timing is when you're pretty much at your weakest, as if your teammates get caught, you're nowhere close enough to the enemy's base to start taking towers to punish. That's why I know to spam ping my teammates to back off. And of course, you can see how this doesn't do anything at all, and my teammates still get caught anyways. However, take note of how I immediately jump forward. I know I need to push as fast as humanly possible to try and punish the enemy for not sending someone to defend against me. With how fast Tristana can take towers, I'm actually able to take an inhibitor off my team getting caught. The point being, as soon as you get into a side lane, realize one of the biggest threats is your pushing and tower damage. So if you see your team pressuring on the map, anticipate they're going to get caught and be ready to run it down your lane as fast as possible. Now, game 8 is when I faced my first melee matchup, and let me tell you, I got absolutely destroyed. The Echo would just jump on me if I tried to harass him from range and then out damage me in the trade. It literally felt unplayable from level 2. But I knew I had to be doing something wrong, as there is no way there were so many Korean Challenger Tristana mids if they lost this hard into melee champions. So I analyzed the replays and realized I was making the following mistakes. Firstly, you'll notice how in my game, I completely overpushed the wave. What this means is that I reduced the amount of time I could play with both the range advantage at level 1 and the timing window where I was level 2 over the opponent. It also meant when I was level 2, I really didn't have a big wave to protect me from engages. Now compare this to a Korean Challenger. They make sure not to damage the wave nearly as much. This way that that first wave doesn't crash into the tower. This gives them a way longer timing window where they're level 2 while the enemy is level 1 and a bigger wave to protect them. You can see how this was key in Tristana immediately winning lane at level 2. The second mistake I made was that I skilled W level 2, which is pretty normal into ranged matchups. You can see how when Echo trades with me though, it really does nothing at helping me do more damage. Compare that to the Korean Challenger. They skill Q level 2 into melee champions. This way, when Aurelia tries to engage, they're able to just machine gun them down and out-trade them. I was fortunate enough to be able to put these fixes into action in the final game we'll be going over. I made sure to push much slower, giving me more time to harass the enemy with my ranged advantage level 1, and you can see how this resulted in the second wave being outside of the tower, just like the Korean Challenger. Now, I have a ton more time to abuse the enemy with my level advantage. As the wave crashes, I made sure to skill into Q, and so when the enemy tries to last it, I'm able to land way more damage than if I had W. And you can see the difference this made. The enemy is super low in health, out of potions, while I not only have a ton more health, but also 1 potion left. Alright, now before I show you the results of the 10 games I played, let's quickly go over Tristana's build. You'll have 2 different rune and summoner spell setups depending on whether you're facing a ranged champion or melee champion. Into a ranged champion, you want to take this rune page. Fleet Footwork will give you so much sustain in lane to deal with the ranged harass. For summoner spells, you take Flash and Teleport. You have to take Teleport into ranged champions or you can find yourself at risk of getting poked out of lane far too much. Into melee champions, you want to take this rune page instead. You don't need the sustain from Fleet, and so it's better to take Lethal Tempo for the raw DPS and better scaling. For summoner spells, I recommend you take Flash and Exhaust. Exhaust not only will help you win lane, but just as important is it will help you continue to beat them in the mid to late game when you end up having to side lane against them. For your build, you always want to start Dorn's Blade and a health pot. You then rush Static Shiv. This item will give you insane pushing power for the rest of the game. You then get Berserker's Graves into Navori Quick Blades. Now, Navori Quick Blades gives you insane synergy since Tristana is very ability dependent for her damage. You'll literally get 100% uptime on your Q with this item. These 3 items make up your core build. After this, it's a bit more situational. I recommend going either Bloodthirster for more damage or something more defensive like a Maw or QSS if it's needed as your 4th. Your 5th item will pretty much always be Lord Dominic's Regards if you didn't buy it as a 4th item, as you will need the armor penetration at this point. And as a last item, you really can't go wrong with Guardian Angel. So here's an example of a final build with Tristana mid. Now, if Static Shiv continues to get nerfed, or you just happen to be facing a really tanky team, you want to swap it for Kraken Slayer. This item will actually give you way more champion damage than Static Shiv, you just give up that super fast minion clear. Alright, so what were the results of the 10 games I played? I ended up winning 7 out of the 10 games I played for a 70% win rate. 1 loss came from a teammate rage quitting an AFK, there was nothing I could do. 1 loss came from me not knowing how to play the melee matchup. And 1 loss came from me throwing my lead by constantly jumping in without full vision and getting myself killed. It doesn't stop here though, as I kind of became addicted to how fun this strategy was and just kept playing. I actually ended up with a 75% win rate over 32 games, and got to around high diamond to low master MMR before I had to call it quits and, actually write the guide and not play League all day.
And there you go. You now have everything you need to start stomping with Tristana mid. For everything else you need to start improving fast and ranking up, there's skillcapped.com. We have premium courses for everything that you need to know to start ranking up. Skillcapped is the perfect platform to help take your game to the next level. The best part though is our service is completely risk-free to try, as you're kept safe with rank up insurance. If you don't significantly improve while actively using Skillcapped, then you'll get your money back, no questions asked. So, what are you waiting for? Get the rank you've always wanted by clicking the link in the description below. Alright, and that is a wrap on this one, guys. We here at Skillcapped want to thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.